Good morning, dear Dharma friends. How nice to see you. Better than nice. How wonderfully comforting. Those gongs you were just hearing was a brief recording I made just about 5 minutes ago. I have a set of gongs I bought at the Brighton Bush. They're the same. I used my guitar tuner and found out what notes they are and sent that to my friends Adrian and Paige, and they said, I forget what key it is. They said that's the exact key of Gregorian chant. And so whenever the wind blows in our backyard, we have this beautiful, I don't know, the neighbors probably hate it, but it's really nice. Anyway, it just occurred to me, I'm going to make a long-ish recording, maybe 20 minutes or so, and have that as like the dial tone on my like before I start and so on. Heather, thank you for the offer of the recorder. One of my neighbors had one. Thank you. Well, here we are. Got it. Thank you, Jim. Hey, Jim. Let's turn on. I'm going to turn off that recording and do it differently so it's here on my machine. Here we go. I just like hearing her say definitively what's happening. We could do that for half an hour and see how irritating it would be. Well, hi friends. I'm going to go. I am live on Facebook and YouTube. It would appear that the sound is working. Hello, Marcus. Sorry to startle you. Haven't seen you before. Nice to have you aboard. Where are you coming in from? Oh, you're muted, my friend. Oh my. Well, congratulations. When the center opens, I hope we get to see you there. If it opens, given all the delays. Huh. This weather is not normal, my friend. It's supposed to rain here. It used to rain here. All right, I'll be good. Have something else to do here this morning. I have a poem. I was sent this poem just the other day, and I've been reading it all over the place. So this might be your second or third rendition, but it's worth several listens. It's a love poem, a forgiveness poem, an awareness poem, an awakening poem. It's by Fred Lamotte. My ancestry DNA results came in. Just as I suspected, my great-great-grandfather was a monarch butterfly. Much of who I am is still wriggling under a stone. I am part larva, but part hummingbird too. There is dinosaur tar in my bone marrow. My golden hair sprang out of a meadow in Palestine. Genghis Khan is my fourth cousin, but I didn't get his dimples. My loins are loaded with banyan seeds from Sri Lanka, but I descended from Ravana, not Ram. My uncle is a mastodon. There are traces of white people in my saliva. 3.7 billion years ago, I swirled in golden dust, dreaming of a planet overgrown with lingams and yonis. More recently, say 60,000 BCE, I walked on hairy paws across a land bridge joining Sweden to Botswana. I am the bastard of the sun and moon. I can no longer hide my heritage of raindrops and cougar scat. I am made of your grandmother's tears. You conquered rival tribesmen of your own color, chained them together, marched them naked to the coast, and sold them to colonials from Savannah. I was the brother you sold. I was the slave trader. I was the chain. Admit it. You have wings, vast and golden, like mine, like mine. You have sweat, salty sweat, like mine, like mine. You have secrets silently singing in your blood, like mine, like mine. Don't pretend that the earth is not one family. Don't pretend we never hung from the same branch. Don't pretend we don't ripen on each other's breath. Don't pretend we didn't come here to forgive. Don't pretend that the earth is not one family. Don't pretend we never hung from the same branch. Don't pretend we don't ripen on each other's breath. Don't pretend we didn't come here to forgive. That last stanza is quite a thing, isn't it? Don't forget. And there's a lot to forgive, isn't there? The ways we treat each other in ignorance is quite something. So, please join me if you wish in a familiar little ditty reminding us of taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I take refuge in being awake. What does that mean? Being mindful, knowing what's happening, knowing what I'm feeling, knowing my vulnerabilities, knowing your vulnerabilities, paying attention. I take refuge in the Dharma and the way things actually are. I take refuge in the Sangha. Joan is asking, could we know the name of the poem? Yes, I'm sorry. The poem is My Ancestry DNA Results Came In. I will put it in my blog as well. My Ancestry DNA Results Came In. It's kind of a deeper look at the DNA, though, isn't it? When I was a cloud of swirling dust, not yet a planet. I take refuge in the Dharma and the way things actually are. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of practice, the lineage that brings these teachings down to us over thousands of years, 120 to 140 generations, which of course in planetary time is less than a billionth of an eye blink. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Well, we come together to do something so important. To sit here together and to practice being awake. Maybe even practicing isn't the right word. Maybe it's to just be awake. And in this awakeness, there exists a body full of sensations. It breathes in and it breathes out. Part of the way in which we attend to breathing and to everything else is contained in the terms bare attention. Bare attention, being with the actual sensations at the sense door. For instance, breathing in and just being with the sensations of the rising and falling of the abdomen. And the mind and delusion are very powerful, stunningly powerful. rather than being with the direct sensations. A whole lot of inner cognitive things can be happening. A long time ago on one of my early retreats, I paused in the backyard, walking, meditation, to inhale the incredibly beautiful scent of a fine rose. And awareness was deepening, and much to my amazement, I discovered that behind the scenes, the intention was to breathe in that scent, to write a poem to send to my mother, who was agoraphobic. It was quite shocking to discover that was going on. And so let us come back to here, to these sensations right now in the body, in the legs, in the hands. In the feet, in the face, in the breathing in and breathing out. As best we can, we park the body. We sit still. If we can't sit still, if the pain is too much or we're just too restless, then we move mindfully, knowing the intention to move and then moving. We are turning off the robot and turning on this capacity of knowing. In addition to bare attention, observation of the breathing, the sensations of breathing, there are thoughts. There are thoughts. And we take them to be my thoughts or our thoughts. What if they really are just thoughts? We categorize them and their associated emotions and feelings as the five hindrances. The wanting, the liking, the grasping after something, or the pushing away, the disliking, the aversion. Flocks of thoughts in restlessness and agitation and worry, or sleepy dullness that nothing can be seen very clearly. And then there's doubt. Experiencing all of these as they are, as impersonal phenomena. Part of the dream of a separate self. And each breath is an invitation to be here, simply awake. we can observe with bare attention the arising of thoughts and the trance states, which are the trance of everyday life. The trance of I, me, mine, mine, mine. And so there's falling into these states, maybe for a few seconds, a few minutes, sometimes much longer. And there's something very fortunate about the falling into these states in that there then can be awakening from them, awakening in them. And this is observable. We can observe the very awakening. And then there's that moment when now awake again, what shall I do? Shall I turn toward this experience, or shall I go back to the breath? To stop like this is, of course, at first at least, very challenging. We're very accustomed to the mind running wild. as well as all the other wholesome mental factors that we cultivate in mindfulness practice. We cultivate patience. And patience arises through mindfully, knowingly, lovingly, bearing with, encountering impatience. It's the only way to become patient, to realize the self-destructive, self-torture aspect of being impatient, of indulging impatience. The present moment is like this, but I'd like it to be different. Wanting. And of course, we practice in an atmosphere of love, self-acceptance, compassion. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. And love doesn't mean liking everything. It means that there's room for everything. And when I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, and there are so many different ways of hurting, when I'm experiencing suffering, I aspire to hold myself in sweet compassion. And also when I encounter others who are behaving poorly, acting on the basis of greed, hatred, and delusion, I aspire to hold them too in sweet, loving compassion. we tend to experience ourselves as separate. And there is truth to that, isn't there? We must take care of these bodies and these separate identities. The poem that I read earlier speaks so much, so clearly to how do I remember that I'm part of the great mystery? Makes me think of Rumi. Inside the great mystery that is, we never really own anything. So what is this strange competition we feel then before we go one at a time through the same gate? So we come home to now, again and again, very distinctly, very cleanly, awake now. May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. Inviting our loved ones, friends, family, relatives, and of course it isn't so much about them as it is about ourselves and our own attitudes. May I remember to be awake and loving. And now we get to see each other. To see with the eyes of intentional gratitude and love. Well, I have cobbled together the sound, I think, well enough for today. I have a couple of announcements, 3 anyway. The first is I'm really appreciative of your being here. Sunday morning. There's been a lot of broadcasts Sunday mornings. I don't know how many years ago I started broadcasting on Sundays, but a lot. 10 years maybe. Someday, before too long, it will be a hybrid, as it was before, actually. There really is something happening with the building. On Thursday, I submitted a document with the city. No, with the Multnomah County Recorder's Office, which is the contract that PIMC commits itself to finishing the project, finishing the seismic upgrade within 7 years. So they'll let us do the first part now. Monday, tomorrow, maybe Tuesday, the letter will return. I will run it over to our designer and he will submit it to the city. He has a meeting already on Wednesday. Hopefully the letter gets here. And then we'll have a permit. Hooray! Yesterday I purchased 10 doors at Lowe's. It's always frightening making those final, do it, because yikes, did I blow it on some specification? Interesting anxiety. There are a couple of official announcements. You will be receiving a letter soon, maybe early next week, in our fundraising push to raise another bunch of money. We probably need another $80,000 or $90,000 for the project. The city came back and said, well, you have to have a fire alarm, a smoke detector, and also those pull-down things that create fire alarms. And the bid that we're likely they're going to go with is a mere $40,000. It's bizarre how these things are priced. It's crazy. But anyway, we've always done it, and I'll be coming to you, and you'll be getting a letter probably asking for support. And there'll be more on that when it's actually the time for it. But you can go to the link on the chat box and make a contribution now if you'd like. If you're just champing at the bit to practice generosity. Oh, I can't wait. It feels so good to be generous and to support myself and what I love. And then the second is a different request, which is that you would find a link in the chat box, which is to our questionnaire created by our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. We're setting off on quite a journey here, I think. We've been studying what other Dharma centers have done over 10 years, and to really look at our own attitudes and prejudices and how is it we can be a truly welcoming community for everybody. Oh, serious talking to me. Go away. So anyway, we really need your help in this. This poll that went out, or questionnaire, it takes a while. It takes about 8 or 9 minutes to finish it. 90 people have already completed it. And I forget the others. A fair number of people didn't finish it. But the last questions are very important. And we will be telling you what we found. Oh, I know Kat, who's really put together the questionnaire, did a very quick search. And it turns out the highest priority, I shouldn't tell you. No, stop. Don't bias the research, Robert. Damn. Phew, that was close. Not that it would matter. So I think that's enough talking from me. But Jim, do you have any other announcements you'd like to make? Why do I have no sound? Jeez. Hello, Jim? Huh. Jim, I can't hear you, but I'm going to now hand it over to you to do the movement, and while you move, I'm going to try to rescue myself over here. Get some sound. That's good. All right, quiet this.
In that routine. And if I had said, let's all stand here and take 100 full breaths, I wouldn't have many people at the end of the class. But to do Shabashi uh, takes us into a rhythm of deep breathing that the body really appreciates. And it's a free gift from the atmosphere of the planet. The planet has been, uh, the poem we heard talked about the ageless efforts to emerge as a safe planet for mammals that they could create DNA and continue to uh, prosper across the whole planet. It's, it's crucially important to have an atmosphere of a clean, fresh air. So let's sink and just raise the arms and notice how the breath can fill different parts of the lungs, different sensations in the rib cage with just a simple gesture of lifting, breathing in, releasing the arms, relaxing, breathing out. Each exhale becomes a release of cortisol. It's a healing motion. Just this much is the beginning of healing the body from the tension that we pick up from our daily life, exposed to the media, exposed to traffic, exposed to this, exposed to that. And then we take the time to heal our nervous system by deliberately filling with new energy and then releasing any toxins that want to leave. And then if we lift and open the arms, different little nooks and crannies in the lungs receive new energy. They open their arms. All those little molecules and atoms and organelles open up in gratitude. And pretty soon the mood starts to change. The mood of a body in gratefulness and openness and receptiveness is tangible. It's a totally new mood. Very healing. Reaching overhead, we paint a rainbow. Just swinging the arms from one side to the other. Swinging overhead as if we're painting. And the image of painting a rainbow is a slightly different mood, a slightly different feeling in the body. And then sinking, both arms relaxing, crossing the wrists. We breathe in as we come up. We get to the shoulders, turn over and press up and out. And we call this separating clouds. So now we have an image to guide our movement. And again, what's the mood that's created by this gentle lifting, touching the clouds, and then separating the clouds? It's another healing movement. The nervous system is soothed by our actions. We're imitating an action that's been created and practiced for thousands of years in Chinese medicine. And when we pause and feel the difference in the rib cage and the arms and the shoulders, let's do that. Let's pause, turn the palms up, receiving the wisdom of thousands of years of Qigong practitioners, repeating and passing on this simple activity that brings a healing glow to the nervous system rather than battering it with more internet browsing and overkill in our information society. And then turning to the side, we'll lift one hand up in front with the palm up and lift the other hand up next to the shoulder with the palm forward. And as we pull in, we'll push gently with open hand and then turn the hand in front so it's palm up, turn the hand in back so it's palm forward, and press again. So this simple action turns the spine, turns the shoulders, stretches from the lower spine and the pelvic region. The base of this movement is in the hips and the pelvis, but radiates up and out, forward, and then we're pulling in with one hand and we're pushing simultaneously with the others. Feel the difference in the quality of feeling in a hand that's pushing and a hand that's pulling. It feels like this. And the awareness can flash back and forth between the left hand and the right hand and feel the difference. It feels like simultaneous awareness. And I don't know if that's true, but it's sure fast enough to feel simultaneous. One hand pushing while the other hand's pulling. Feels like this. And then sinking down, we pull our hands back and around the shoulder socket, palms down, coming forward and down, palms out and up as we go out to the side and back. So the Chinese character for this is rowing the boat. I prefer to picture a big water wheel. The current of the water is turning this wheel, lifting little waterfalls. Free movement of energy through the system. The water wheel has free movement for all those gallons of water. Created by the current of the stream that's moving through, which is created by this and created by that. It's a process that, like the poem investigating DNA, it goes way back. Where did that water come from? Where did that slope come from? Where did that groove that directs the water? It's all an integrated process. Pausing again and just feeling. We don't need a gesture to become aware of the integrated process. Where's the life in this standing form? So we play around with gestures and stillness, with gratitude for the healing, massaging openness of Qigong practice. One more. We'll drop the hands down and then bring one hand across and up to the corner, lifting a heel. Bring the other hand up, palm up to the opposite corner above. We're lifting the heel while we lift the arm. And both the arm and the leg know the speed with which the other guy is moving. So there's this amazing coherence and harmony between different elements of the standing process we call the human body. Lifting and then turning and gazing at the moon over one shoulder with both hands up. We release the hands down to the center, lift up to the other side and gaze at the moon. There's a twist to the spine. Again, a little gentle massage becomes a healing motion for all the stress and strain that we store in our modern bodies. We receive all these abrupt impulses and stimulations all day long from modern life. And when we pause and just stretch up, release down, stretch up, release down. Come to the center, begin observing the breath with more nuance. Is it deeper now than it was when we started? Is it more obvious, the life in the hands, the life in the feet, the life in the knees, the hips, the shoulders, the neck? What about the little muscles in the face? Put a little half smile on your face and see how easy it is to smile after you've been massaging the nervous system with this amazing wisdom from thousands of years ago. It's not as old as our DNA, but it's old and well tested and very soothing. So we'll stop. We'll sink once more and turn the hands out to the side, bring them up overhead, and then just release down the center, gathering all this practice into one movement and saying, this practice is for the healing of this body, but it's for the healing of everyone on the broadcast, for everyone that's connected to everyone on the broadcast. It goes out and goes out and goes out. This healing energy, may it be for the benefit of all. One more time. Coming to rest. Bringing our hands together in front of our hearts. Gratefulness for another opportunity to practice with our spiritual friends, the Sangha. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Jim. Ah. Well, it would seem as though I have sound, and I managed to transfer your Qigong to the YouTube channel as well. Very impressive.
Thank you very much. When Candle was here, we experimented with her leaving Facebook and me going onto Facebook. It's a little more complicated, but I think it worked. But we'll have to play with that some more.
Interesting. Well, someday we'll be doing it together at the center. That'll be very easy there. Well, we'll see. That's the plan.
Sometimes easy is a delusion.
Yeah. Yeah. I was pretty committed to talking about feeling today, pleasant and unpleasant experiences. But I'm drawn instead to see if perhaps it might be a good day to ask what your questions are. And do a Q&A time. And if you're one of those folks who easily speaks up, please maybe see how long the silence goes, then save me maybe. But let's see. What's happening for you? I could share this actually. I am a bit unsettled by this resurgence of COVID. I know 3 people who have contracted COVID despite being fully vaccinated. And that's unsettling to me. I really want this thing to be over. So any sharing or any questions? I'm going to fall silent now, which is a bit of an effort for me, and see.
Robert, it's Eileen.
Hello, Eileen. I see you.
Hi. What I want to ask you about, talk about, actually has been mentioned so many times, and you did. I actually wrote some words down. Unsettled, aversion, etc. And in the last 3 weeks, I guess, a month, I have had really unsettling, leaning towards fearful encounters with some homeless people who were clearly in delusion. You know, I was aware of that. And Jim was talking about wondering if you could have a multiplicity of awareness at the same time. And that's what I felt happened. As a matter of fact, the first time was, it's been on transit or me walking. I live downtown, but I only live a block or so from the Pearl where there's more control, I think. And 2 Sundays ago, I was walking home from Whole Foods, and I live now, 12th has been made into Restaurant Row, and they've made all, the dining and all of that. It's very cheerful. So there were these people. First time I had seen a dog, and it wasn't a tiny dog with little patent leather shoes on. And I asked if I could take a picture, started chatting with the people, which is not unusual for me. And we were laughing. And then I thought, well, I'd better go. So I might have been there 5 or 10 minutes, helped me take a picture. And in any case, I had a shoulder bag, I guess. And so I don't think it was a big one. I can't remember. But in any case, I have done this thing numerous times where I swing something over my shoulder and I'm not aware of it and could, just, and luckily not to hit somebody. But we were really away from the sidewalk and I was facing the people, and suddenly somebody is yelling at me, but immediately the tenor was, this person is out of control. And then for the first time in my life, I've never been punched before, playfully, but she punched me in the shoulder and I just went, ow, and I backed up. And then she ranted about me being disrespectful, and she said, I'm going to kill you. I wasn't afraid of that because there were people around. I didn't think she was actually going to kill me, but I was feeling apologetic because I certainly hadn't meant to hit her with the bag. The reaction was inappropriate. And when I backed up, and then I can be reactive, but I have this instinct of when not to be and try to ameliorate something or diffuse it. I think it comes from having taught high school a long time and just intuitively. And so I was really sorry if I had hit her. And I didn't feel like she was going to kill me. And she was raving about me disrespecting her. And so I really was apologetic. I'm sorry, I never meant, and I look people in the eye, so that wasn't different. I really didn't mean to hurt you. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. And then she said, well, now that you've learned your lesson. And she went away screaming, and she headed towards a local, one of those shops. I forgot what to call it. In New York, they call it a bodega, but I just, where they have lottery machines and sell things. So then the people I was talking with, who I was with, essentially, the guy said, you didn't hit her. And then it turned out that this person had been doing that, and that they had told the people in the restaurant that they didn't do anything, and that she had threatened a waiter or shoved him but didn't hit him. And so I thought, well, I'm going to leave. But what I decided to do, well, I talked to somebody and I said, really, this is dangerous. I mean, that was the other thing. I was frightened because we hear all these things. The one thought I had that I know is a story I told myself. When she threatened to kill me, I thought there's a good chance she has a razor blade in her hand. And all I thought is my face getting cut. It was split second. So they said, well, we're going to report that because you were a customer. And then only I would say, well, I wasn't really a customer. I was just talking to these people. So what I then felt, and I felt compassion the whole time. I felt compassion for this woman who wasn't getting the help, the treatment, all of that. But I also felt the fear that then dissipated. And then what I did, because there's restaurant after restaurant, is I thought I would walk down. There's one with two young girls, young women, and just tell them so that they wouldn't be caught in surprise, because apparently she'd been doing that. And then I went home and I told one friend, and then I kind of forgot about it. I just didn't tell my family purposely because they're back east. And then if I probably wouldn't have really remembered. People said that this has been happening at the corner restaurant, and they've called the police, and there's nothing they can do. So the situation has always been any place that somebody has to hurt you seriously before the police can do anything, and I understood that. But I felt good that I had been proactive and used this situation to warn other people, and the appreciation and then the warmness of these people. So I never thought to bring it up because that just was. And, I'm aware of the situation and not afraid of homeless people per se, and have that compassion. In any case, yesterday I was coming from the Northeast and was on a bus, and the bus stopped. What's the sports center main thing where they have the Coliseum?
The Moda Center?
Yeah, thank you. And they stopped the bus. Well, it's a transit center also. And people came on to clean it, and they asked if we would get off. And there were only one woman and myself, and the bus driver, who was also a woman. And a woman walked on, and really out of it, screaming. Well, she wasn't screaming immediately, but the bus driver told her that she had bare feet and couldn't. And then she just went off. And we got off the bus, and when she stood there, she had her pants, down below her buttocks, and just screaming. And my reaction, standing next to this other woman, and there were other people around, the people cleaning, was I felt like I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to disappear for that moment. And then the woman just went down and went onto another bus. And of course they called in, and I was grateful that she got on another bus. I was grateful that we had to stop because I had another 15-minute ride or so. So, and then a few weeks before it was with a man at the Lloyd Center, but somebody else stepped in. And so,
Eileen,
that's it.
I'm kind of getting overwhelmed with details. What's the...
So my point is, we talk about, and you're talking about, and I'm thinking about compassion, but I'm also thinking about fear, self-protection, all of this. And I'm just wondering, I'm sorry with all the detail, but sorry, that's how I am, is the multiplicity that I'm feeling all these things, but that's it. All at once. So what's that about? And
you mean that you're feeling compassion and fear and maybe a little anger, and that it's complicated.
Right. So and the ability, nonviolent compassion, to do all of that. aware to diffuse. And so in hearing the speaking, and I know this isn't just happening to me, so I didn't take any of it personally because it wasn't personal. But I'm trying to put it together with stuff I'm trying to do is to be more compassionate, etc. And many of us are facing this. Everybody's potentially facing it, no matter where you're living. And so I'm just bringing up that issue because I think it is having an effect on me. I'm not scared to go out. I mean, that's what I do.
Thank you for sharing all that. I think it's very useful, actually. I'm reminded of a story that Sharon Salzberg has in one of her books, in the book on loving kindness. She was coming through Calcutta in a bicycle rickshaw. Bicycle rickshaws are very common there. They were, and so there's this little driver, and there could be two people in the back, and sometimes you have baggage. It's really quite wild. And anyway, she was coming through a narrow street, and some guy jumped out and grabbed at her, and she managed to fend him off. But she then saw Munindraji, who I also had as a teacher for a while, and she was talking about her upsetness and that she wanted to be compassionate, kind of a similar thing to what you're saying, I think. And he said, "Didn't you have an umbrella?" And she said, "Well, yes, I did." And he said, "You should have struck him with compassion." Sometimes there's a bigger question here that I want to see if I can feel my way into. This is a first for me. I carry this in my purse. It's a 2-shot pepper gel gun, accurate to 20 feet. Very effective. I tried it against a tree. Why would I carry such a thing? There could be a circumstance which is life-threatening, in which I'm not in a position like the Buddha in one of his previous lives to say, "Here, lioness, have my body, feed your cubs." That it might be a very compassionate thing in some circumstance to say, "Stop or you're falling down. I don't want to do this, but you better stop." So there is a place, and even in nonviolent communication, which I don't know really well, but there is a place for the compassionate use of force, which is when, and there's another story. I read an interview with a young man, 40s maybe, who was one of the American bodyguards for the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama travels with serious, he travels in quite a bubble. I have twice experienced the bubble. And there are layers. There's the police that you have to get through the electromagnetic screeners. And then there's several layers, including at the last layer, there's his 3 very strong Tibetan guards and several Americans. The interview was with this young American who was one of his bodyguards and former military, And the interviewer said, would you harm someone in order to protect His Holiness? And he said, well, yes, if I had to. And then he asked him the big question, would you kill someone if you had to? And he said, why, of course, if I had to protect His Holiness. And then the fellow asked more questions, and he said, well, of course, I would do it with as little rancor and as much compassion as I possibly could. So that's extreme.
Yeah, Robert, I think that I've always known, and living in New York and stuff, I knew that I would never be one of those women to be afraid to gouge somebody's eyes. If I was alone and on the street, I would do my best to hurt them to get away. Mm-hmm. But this was really different. There were people around. It took all this judgment. And that's why it being so complicated. And I know you don't want the details, but this one, because this was always funny. In Manhattan, I was going down, for those of you who know it, from 72nd Street in the West Side, and going down the subway, and a guy came, I had my purse over my shoulder, and another man came up and he rubbed his hands down my body. Well, all I could think of is, thank God he didn't take my purse. And so then I said, F. And so he said, F your mother. And then I said, you should be so lucky. And then everybody in the subway coming up and down laughed. And that's what I would, I knew he wasn't going to kill me. But as I said, I thought it was funny, touch my body. I don't really care. I'm here. Don't take my purse. But this is different. This one was, all three circumstances were much harder and much more fearful. They're not cut and dry. So perhaps I'm not explaining it right. It just was all this stuff coming at once.
So what I'm hearing is you had, I think, conflicting feelings. And that's the human condition. When you start waking up and start noticing how complex things are, that part of you is afraid, part of you is angry, part of you is compassionate, and one does one's best to be aware of it as it arises and then disappears. And with the more awareness we have, the more we can notice those conflicting. We certainly can have completely opposite feelings about things. Mm-hmm. And that's just the nature of the beast.
But it leaves a toll, and I didn't realize that until
it has a toll. That's why as the culture breaks down and we have this kind of encounter, we will find ourselves hurting with it. And there's a price. And all the more reason to become, and here let me just see if I can get this together here. This is again a Sharon Salzberg story. I heard it first from Sharon. If every day, let's say before you leave home in the morning, you participate in our 7 o'clock meditation, or you do some Qigong, or whatever you do, you soften and you open and you go beyond stress. You get into a state of great openness or relaxation as best you can. That builds up some resilience in the nervous system so that when stressful circumstances come along, they don't blow us out of the water. And we have less leftovers. We have less PTSD kind of, we bandy that term about too freely, but we have less trauma left over after circumstances. And the image is like this. This is my beautiful little cup that Frank later gave me. Like you'll all meet Frank in a year or so. He's going to come back. I'm teaching in Germany with him in July of 2022 at a retreat center that Ruth Dennison started. But anyway, I've got my cup and I've got it full of water, and I take a tablespoon of salt and I put it in here and I mix it up, and it's very salty, unpleasantly salty. If I take that same salt down to the Willamette River and mix it in the river, it basically disappears. Mm-hmm. And if every day, maybe more than once a day, we become the river, then everything is less stressful because of that resiliency we have. And in the middle of a stressful circumstance, we can take a breath and go, oh, I know how it is to kick off the parasympathetic nervous system. I know how it is to relax. And circumstances will come along which will be challenging.
I think you just added something that I hadn't really equated this with, which is the breakdown of things. I had equated it with more generalized.
Uh-huh.
And that's just, that's something that is. Just have to accept that. And
we are living in...
I must have brought it up in a way because I wanted to hear if there was something more I could do, if I didn't do something, I think just for approval, not for laudatory, but just for, because I was obviously clear in everything I said.
Yeah.
But just to feel better or to share. I'm not going to analyze it. I'll leave it be.
Okay. One of the reasons we share anxiety-provoking circumstances is because we humans do better when we don't have to carry it all ourselves. And we can be validated. Yep. I can say to you personally, Robert, to Eileen, yes, I know those feelings. They make sense to me. And then you don't have to wonder whether you're deficient or something. It's like, yeah, it's normal.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Hey, Robert.
Hi.
Vic.
Hi, Vic. You go ahead. It was a little. It was loud on my end. I'm going to turn it down. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I was inspired by, I think, Had, who just recently did the 10-day retreat at the Goenka Center.
Yes.
And so I actually applied for the mid-October session. I've been hungry for a longer retreat for a while now. And I'm going to try and see if I can carve out time for that. And I've done 5-day retreats, but never a 10-day retreat. I was just wondering if you had any guidance, recommendation for how one might think about going about a 10-day retreat.
Have a wonderful time. And on that particular retreat, I would say be very gentle with yourself. And you have enough experience and background and training that I think you'll make really good use of that retreat. For people who are new to practice, I encourage them not to do those retreats because there's a tremendous emphasis upon striving and upon sitting really long periods of time and vow sittings and this may have changed, but I doubt it. The instructors are not particularly skilled in dealing with someone who starts having emotional upsetness. Not so long ago, probably a year now, maybe two, over the years I've had a trickle, sometimes a stream, of people who did those retreats who came away from them not in great shape. And one fellow came to see me and he was very upset and freaked out, and they had told him to leave in the middle of the night. they didn't know what to do with him because he was sobbing uncontrollably, and he came to see me twice, maybe once or twice. And all he needed was validation that this grief that was emerging was a normal thing, and that what he should do is turn toward it rather than try to go back to body sweeping. It was the wrong, he got the wrong advice, wrong guidance. That it was something that needed to be felt, and there was nothing wrong with sobbing or getting really angry, or he wasn't a danger to himself or others. And he rather quickly moved through that, but they weren't able to help him. And I know you well enough, Vic, that I think you'll really get a lot out of that retreat. And I will encourage you to do some walking. They don't teach walking meditation. I encourage you to do some walking. And to get enough sleep, and to not get overly caught in the notion that you're going to push real hard and get enlightened on that retreat. I'd say go and use it as a time of really fine practice.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I do honor Goenka because he was my first teacher. In Bodh Gaya in January of 1971, I met that man and did that kind of retreat, and it turned my life around. I mean, I probably would not be alive if I hadn't done that retreat. I think that's quite reasonable. I would have died of self-abuse of one kind or another, alcohol, drugs, despair. I know something I've never thought of before. You might take the Metta Sutta with you and recite it frequently on that retreat. That'd be a good thing to do. And I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. That could also be very useful. And take a comfortable way to sit and insist on using it. You don't have to sit cross-legged. I'm having a little thought. Oh, you should have given a talk. It should be a certain way. Life should always be a certain way. Can you hear the gongs in the background at all? No, they're fairly distant. Hi, Joan.
Hi. I just wanted to say that poem was very appropriate for me. I really enjoyed it, and I did my DNA and have been doing some research and stuff. And yesterday I was quite distressed because most of my family are like farmers, weavers, millers, but I'm related to the Tiptons of North Carolina. And one of them wrote the Bill of Rights for North Carolina that Jefferson complimented, so I felt real proud about that. Not that it had anything to do with me. And then I found that one of my ancestors sold a 7-year-old girl who was a slave, and another one inherited a, quote, lively Negro boy. And one of the Tiptons was involved in distributing the land that was acquired from the Cherokee.
Huh.
And, it's something when you read these things in history and it's far away and abstract. And it's another thing when you find that your own relatives were involved in these reprehensible acts. So I've been grappling with the sadness of that a little bit.
It's really as you can see, I'm at a loss for words. Genealogy is a very interesting thing. And what is our relationship to these persons who came earlier in our genetic chain? A shift happened for me some years ago in that my curiosity is more in my spiritual lineage than in my genetic lineage. I'm very grateful for Ruth Dennison and Uba Kin and Lady Sayadaw. And these kind of revelations of what our ancestors did can really be potent in opening our hearts, can't they? We humans are capable of such extraordinary kindness and beauty and goodness, and also such heinous acts. So we can be conditioned, given the womb we're born in and how we're conditioned. We can perceive other people as subhuman, and it's really it's unsettling to me. And further increases my commitment to waking up, to not be lost in what delusions of superiority or inferiority, or what delusions are still waiting to be opened up inside here. Again, I mean, there's a movement for me which always says go deeper, practice deeper. So, Joan, what's the outcome of that for you in terms of your life experience, finding those things out?
I had one sort of whimsical thought, I suppose, which is maybe every Tipton descendant ought to contribute $500 to some fund to buy some land for the Cherokee. And these people are from North Carolina and Tennessee, so that's not likely to go over well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a fantasy, but I guess some kind of, reparation personally, or I mean, I don't know. I'm just sort of not aware. And then I wonder, these things seem to so appalling to us, whereas they were taken as commonplace. What things are we doing now that will seem appalling? Or as you say, deep in your practice, become aware, what things are we doing now that are just as appalling?
How about separating children from their parents at the border? How about drone strikes in the middle of the night? It's all still happening. I believe, funny, hesitant to say this, but I believe that we are in a generation, we are in a time where our moral and ethical capacity will be challenged very deeply. Because the relative stability where we had the striations of culture and caste, basically, as the climate changes, things are going to get pretty wild. And so I think it's crucial that we band together and that we figure out how to stay loving. It's true, isn't it? The test is, can we stay loving? Can we become more loving in our intimate relationships and our friendships? Can we really see everyone as our true brothers and sisters, despite culture, race? It's quite an undertaking. And what else is there to do? We might as well do it. Somebody else, I think, had unmuted. Oh, you also brought up an interesting thing, the notion of reparations. There is an inequity on the planet in which, I forget the number now, I used to know it, but Americans comprise a certain percentage of the people on the planet, and we consume 35 or 40% of the energy on the planet. That's a terrible inequity. And in order to balance it would mean an actual decrease in our standard of living. Imagine that. But it would be kind. So these are the macro issues, aren't they? How should we do this? And we could easily get overwhelmed and then not do anything. But I think it really behooves us to think about how we can live more gently and kindly with each other.
Robert?
I hear Jonas.
Yes. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, actually, just one thing, and that was, when we think about COVID and we're all fearful of COVID and what have you, more people will die this year from starvation than COVID. And this country is number one in infant mortality in the industrialized world. And the homeless people that we talk about, there are children in that population group, in that cohort.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's just the truth.
I know.
There's no way I could go back to India now. I took pictures of mommies and daddies and their children living in cardboard boxes, and it was sort of quaint. It's tremendous denial. So again, what can we do in the short run? I aspire to become capable of taking enough time in my day to actually have some balance and remain loving and kind and generous in the middle of this. In the middle of this personal waking up and this cultural waking up. I guess that's my shtick, isn't it? Interesting topics.
Good morning, Sanger. Hi, Robert. It's David.
It's David. Hello.
Hello, Robert. How are you?
I'm kind of soft and open at the moment.
Yeah, me too. So I just wanted to say, there's lots of stories in the news right now about people who have had are fully vaccinated and are getting COVID nonetheless. And I'm a little concerned that the number of reports is going to dissuade people from getting the vaccination, saying,
yes,
oh, people are getting COVID anyway, right? So I'm not going to get the vaccination. But in fact, I mean, I was reading an article this morning on the news in Canada here, and those cases, they're called breakthrough cases here anyway. And they make up 0.5% of the population, a very low number. And I'm concerned that we're kind of reaching a plateau right now in Canada. I'm not sure in the States.
Yeah.
Of people who are getting the vaccinations. And I think it's really important that we continue with this, honestly. I mean, there's so many people, seniors and children and others who are, compromised. There's people with immune compromisations happening as well. I don't want to dissuade those who might consider getting them, saying, oh, well, you can get fully vaccinated and still get COVID. The vaccines were never 100% effective. They're, 88% effective, which is high, but it's not 100. So I'm just a little concerned with the number of news stories happening right now saying, well, they're fully vaccinated, but they had COVID. And it's like, well, you see, it wasn't true. But in fact, the vaccinations are helping quite a bit in preventing the spread of COVID. So I just want to, kind of voice that a little bit. So.
Yes, and the people who've been vaccinated do not die or get hospitalized from COVID. You're right. Thank you. Yeah, and that's interesting. Thanks for pointing it out. And it's right there in the early statistics. It was this vaccine is 95% or for 84% or whatever effective. It does mean there are holes in the net. Duh. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just on a matter of scale, I mean, 88% effective or 90% effective. But if you have a population of 300 million, that's a lot of people, that 5%, right? So
yeah.
But that's just how it goes. Few vaccines are 100% effective. So.
Right.
So anyway, but thank you for listening. Thanks, everyone.
Mindfulness, the vaccine for greed, hatred, and ignorance. It is, when applied well, 94.7% effective. When accompanied with training in loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, it becomes 98% effective. That's a marketing campaign. There it is, right? Get your mindfulness dose today. Create it at home. Uh-oh, it's getting dangerous. I'm laughing at my own joke, as bad as it is. Bad. Well, it's almost noon. Be nice. We might end on time for once. Anybody sitting with something you'd like to share before we sing our way out of here?
I'll share.
Shannon, hello.
Yeah. Hi. I was just reflecting. I woke up kind of early this morning and didn't sleep well last night, but still feel pretty good about the day. And one of my now acquaintances, she used to be more of a friend when my kids were younger. So when I was in my late 20s, she adopted a couple kids that were in her family that were really horribly abused by her extended family members, and so she was given the chance to bring them in. And I was the little girl that she adopted just passed away recently, and there was a memorial for her yesterday. She's my daughter's age at 21, and or thereabout. She might have been a year younger or older. Anyway, just really, she had such a tragic life, but she was such a sweet spirit. It's kind of one of those situations where it just made me think about my kids, and I have a lot of stories to tell about my kids, obviously, but I was appreciating like lessons that my kids have taught me, and thinking about how lucky that some of us get to be parents while we're here. And my daughter's 21 and she's engaged and going to be married next year. And I got married when I was barely 20, so I can't say anything. But, she's taught me a lot about her teen years were really rough. She was bipolar, and I still was able to learn lessons from her. And one of the greatest things I learned was you cannot control another human being, no matter what you do. And that I'm really thankful for that.
I'm emphasizing that's a statement worthy of a gong.
Oh, good. I thought I was going on.
No, I mean, I wish I could really learn that one fully. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I did want to
That's okay.
playfully emphasize. Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course. I wasn't meaning to stop you.
Okay. I was just going to say that each of my kids taught me things. And along the way, my ex-husband and I had adopted a couple Haitian kids when they were teenagers, and our birth kids were actually younger at the time. And I was 29 years old, and I took in a 14 and 12-year-old from Haiti. My birth kids were 6 and 4 at the time. And, it was a failed adoption. They were with us for just 3 years, and there's a lot of tumultuous stuff that went on, lawsuits and stuff that it's a long story. But anyway, I learned a lot about Haiti. I learned a lot about international adoption, immigration. There was just a ton of lessons there as well. But, the cultural perceptions and differences and how Americans interact with the world and whatnot. But anyway, I guess I'm just saying that I was reflecting on everything, how lucky we are to get to be parents. And some of us, maybe it's not birth kids or adopted kids even, but just young ones in our lives, just things we can learn. And gosh, I've just learned so much from them. So.
Mm-hmm. Trials by fire. Initiations toward deeper compassion and love. Thank you, Shannon. Well, okay to end today? Did you have nice plans for the rest of Sunday? among the things I'm going to do is to lie in the hammock for a while and just see what happens out there. Thank you for coming to the party today, for bringing this precious, one-of-a-kind human that you are to share yourself with us. Hello, Jai, you just appeared. Nice to see you. Well, let's go out on Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam, ancient chant. Please unmute if you feel like it so we can contribute to our joyous sound together. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So thank you for coming, and please remember, if you'd like, we go on every weekday morning at 7 o'clock with monotonous regularity.
Monotonous about it, Robert.
Adios, my friends.
Thanks, Robert.
Be
Thank
safe.
you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Have a good day,
Bye.
Robert.
Be well,
Namaste.
Sangha.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you
Thank
all.
you, Sweet Sangha.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank
Are you
you.
gonna wish us
Bye,
off?
Tamara.
Swish us off?
Oh, that you want the prepare.
Yes.
I'm going to do it officially here, sort of something like, prepare for the jump to hyperspace.
Yes.